we just had the Styrian Grand Prix in Formula One. It really wasn't the best race I've ever seen in Formula One. Max Verstappen, the Red Bull driver, dominated. And he dominated the way that we've seen Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton done so many times before. Max was just pulling away from everyone. He had with a couple laps to go, he had a 15-second lead before Lewis Hamilton got a pit stop to try to get fastest lap. He was just pulling away from everybody by the end of the race. And look, I have not been shy about the fact I am rooting for Max Verstappen to win the Formula One title. I think it'd be cool to see Red Bull knock off the top dog Mercedes, see Max Verstappen knock off Lewis Hamilton. That's a fun story. I'm kind of rooting for that to happen. But I don't want to watch anybody win a race in a style the way Max Verstappen won Sunday morning. As for me, I guess it's Sunday evening for people in Europe. I don't know how it works. Time zones confuse me. But blowouts are not fun. I watched the race this morning and I was like, there's just not a lot of drama here. I want tense, competitive wheel-to-wheel racing like we did 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we got that. We didn't get that here. And it was just France was a great race. This was not. This was a very you can find storylines if you want to. There certainly are things to talk about, but I was disappointed that the battle for first wasn't more competitive. Now, McLaren versus Ferrari, that was interesting. Lando Norris got fifth, and the Ferraris finished back-to-back. Carlos Sainz got sixth, and Charles Leclerc got seventh. In fact, Charles Leclerc had to make a really big comeback to get to the spot where he could finish in seventh. On lap one, Pierre Gasly and Charles Leclerc made contact with each other. Pierre Gasly got a puncture. He ended up having to retire in the end. Charles Leclerc got his front wing knocked off, and so he had to pit at the end of lap one. And then Charles Leclerc had to battle all the way through the grid, all the way through the field to get back up and finishing seventh. So I thought, Charles Leclerc won driver of the day. I think that's very, very deserving because he came from the very back to finish seventh, get in the points, help his team out. I love that. I thought it was very, very exciting and interesting. Now, the most heartbreaking part of this race was George Russell. He's a driver for Williams. He's never finished in the points. It's pretty clear anytime you watch George Russell, you go, this is a really talented driver with a really bad team. He had great pace all weekend. He was kind of outperforming the car, to be totally honest. And today, he was up in the points, was in the eighth spot on the grid when his car had a problem and he had to retire early. And it's so disappointing because I was like, man, I thought this was finally, if there's ever a race where George Russell's going to finish in the points, it's today, right now. And for him to have engine failure that's not his fault at all, it's so just sad and disappointing. And I personally really, really want to see George Russell drive for Mercedes. He's such a good driver who is so clearly on such a bad team with Williams. So if we can ever see George Russell on a good team, I really want to see what he can do. I think he's a guy who has potential if he's given time to grow and build and a good team around him. He could win a world title, but he just needs a team around him. He's one of those guys like Lando, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc. I would put George Russell in that conversation as a guy who, you give him a good enough team, he could win it all. But right now, it's so obvious he's on an awful team with Williams, and I just feel so heartbroken for George Russell. Now, here are the meaningful results from the race. Max Verstappen won for Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton got second for Mercedes. Lewis also, by the way, got fastest lap, which is another world championship point for him in the driver's standings. I guess, is that all? Anyway. The other Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas, got third. Sergio Perez almost caught him. He finished fourth. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull got fourth place, was literally half a second behind the Mercedes in third. Lando Norris got fifth for McLaren. Sixth and seventh were the two Ferraris, Carlos Sainz, and then Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, that crazy comeback, really, really cool. Here are the current standings right now in Formula One. We'll start with the driver standings. You have Max Verstappen in first with 156 points. Lewis Hamilton in second with 138 points. Sergio Perez is way behind. He's in third with 96 points. I give you that to show context of how separate Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are from everybody else. It's a two-person race, and then there's everybody else way behind them. In the team standings, you have Red Bull in first with 256 points. Mercedes in second with 212 points. Then you have the battle for third. Right now in third, you have McLaren. They have 120 points. And then Ferrari's in fourth with 108 points. So it's Red Bull, Mercedes. That's tier one. Tier 2, the battle for third, McLaren, Ferrari. And then way behind in fifth, you have AlphaTauri with 46 points. It's really, there's two people battling for first, there's two teams battling for third, and then that's it. The rest of F1 is way behind all of them. Next weekend, we have another race in Austria, the Austria Grand Prix, on Sunday, July 4th. I think that's, I know that's Independence Day in America. I'm sure there's a big IndyCar race. You know me, I'm going to lean Formula One. I'll watch the Formula One race because I love Formula One. It's a doubleheader, back-to-back weekends in Austria. I loved the Styrian Grand Prix, like where it's located. It's in Spielberg. The location, you got the Green Mountains. Like there's that sweeping view of the lake and that tiny little village. I would love to go to a race someday there at the Red Bull Ring. It'd be really, really cool. And that concludes my thoughts on the Styrian Grand Prix. I'm excited for next weekend. And I hope that somehow we can get a more competitive battle for first or third with maybe Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, or hopefully the battle for first between, and I mean third as a team, but then first with, I want Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton to come down to the wire and be more interesting. The only saving grace in this past race today was that we had Sergio Perez hunting down Valtteri Bottas, coming in within half a second to finish fourth instead of third. Other than that, man, I thought it was kind of a mundane race with not a lot going on. I felt bad for George Russell, and those are my thoughts on the Styrian Grand Prix.